let's talk about the system, the swamp, draining the swamp. Let's talk about all this because we're all going through something here. All of us. I'm going through the exact same thing you're going through. We're all doing the same thing right now. Donald Trump won an election in November. We're excited about that. Happy. Couldn't afford all that. Yeah. But we didn't want Trump to be there just to be there, right? You have things you want him to do. I have things I want him to do. And one of the things that's central to most of us on the right is exposing and stopping the terrible corruption inside of Washington, D.C. Obviously, that draining the swamp is what most people call it. We've called it that here, but the system, the criminal enterprise, whatever it is. So let's discuss that, what's happening, what's not happening, reality versus what we wish. Let's talk about it. First, let's think about a knot. I'm talking about the worst knot you've ever had to confront. You thinking about it? Maybe it was a bunch of wires or one wire, shoestrings, cords, something. At some point, you're like, maybe fishing. If you're fishing, you've encountered it. At some point, you've encountered a knot that is a disaster. Now, why is it a disaster? Time. Over a long enough period of time, this mixing with this and that and this and that, the knot just got worse and worse and tighter and tighter and tighter over time. The longer it was festering, the worse it got. Now, how do you untie it? With time. That's the truth. Draining the swamp is going to take a lot of time because creating the swamp took a lot of time. We didn't get to this place of corruption as a country 5 years ago. You know, it didn't start under Joe Biden, although he may have made it all worse. It didn't even start under Barack Obama. Decades and decades of neglect by us, the public, and evil deeds by people in Washington, D.C. has created this knot that may seem impossible at times. Well, I don't believe it is impossible. I will tell you this, just right between the eyes. It's going to take time. And it's going to take a lot of effort, focused, ongoing effort. We're not going to be able to look at it and just solve it with one election. That's not how it works. For instance, let's talk about the Epstein stuff, because that's probably a priority one for a lot of people. Jeffrey Epstein, as you already know, billionaire, financier, famously was involved with underage sex trafficking, just the grossest stuff you can possibly imagine. And he wasn't doing it alone. He was friends, partners with a lot of the wealthiest, most powerful people on the planet. We don't know who exactly did what, but we know for a fact that, for instance, he was signed, it's public record, he was signed into Bill Clinton's White House multiple times. Jeffrey Epstein famously had, I guess, a painting of Bill Clinton, a really weird one. He's in a blue dress. It's odd. Jeffrey Epstein was friends with Bill Gates. We know his wife gave an interview where she blamed their friendship as part of the reason she divorced him. Very interesting, right? So again, we're talking wealthy, powerful people, royal family members. And so you, me, I would like to know who these people are. If you are abusing women, especially underage ones, but really any age, if you are abusing women and children, I don't care how much money you're worth or how powerful you are, I believe you should be brought to justice just the same way anyone would. And so we're very interested in that Epstein list. Now, Kash Patel, head of the FBI, gave a little update on it.
Did Jeffrey Epstein himself or did somebody him?
Senator, I believe he himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When you think you'll have it done, Kash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims.
Okay. Well, that was about as non-committal can get. So what's at play here? Is Kash Patel using his role at the FBI to protect evil, powerful sex traffickers? I doubt that very much. That's not his reputation. I don't know Kash Patel, but he has an excellent reputation. I doubt that. So what's really at play? Are they really protecting victims? Maybe. Do keep in mind, it's a very, very dangerous thing to have damaging information on wealthy, powerful men. It can be very hazardous to your health, as you are well aware. Maybe they are protecting victims. Maybe the wealthy, powerful men who are about to be exposed, possibly, maybe they have outstanding $1,000 an hour attorneys who are mucking up the whole process. Maybe. Maybe there are people on that list who didn't commit any crimes or necessarily do anything wrong. Remember, this was a billionaire financier with a private jet. Somebody came to you with a potential business deal and said, I'll send my private jet along. Would you hop on? Would you do all the vetting of him first? Probably not. I don't know that I would. You offer me a private jet. Maybe somebody rode on that jet who didn't do anything wrong, didn't touch anybody, didn't hurt anyone. I don't know. Now, I don't know. But I guess that's the point of this entire conversation when it comes to the system and the swamp. And there are many, many, many things we don't know, things we want to know, some things we'll never know. But here's what we do know. We know that the corruption of Washington, D.C. is years and years and years in the making. We have a bad knot to untie. And electing Donald Trump for 4 more years is not going to get the job done. It helps. It's a lot better than electing Dome. It helps. But even if he was perfect, and he's not, and nobody is, but even if he was perfect, you can't undo decades of Washington, D.C. corruption walking in there for your final 4 years of president. That's not how it works at all. Remember Ed Martin? This was a story from last week, but it's kind of a big deal. The U.S. attorney, the D.C. court system is one of the most evil court systems on planet Earth. I am not overstating that at all. I don't care where you go, North Korea, Russia, Iran. I don't know that you can find a more biased, evil court system than the one in Washington, D.C. That court system is the reason all these nonviolent January 6ers were charged with things like terrorism and thrown in cages, because you can convict any Republican of anything there. You can't get a Democrat conviction because they're all communists, and you can convict a Republican of anything, of spitting on the sidewalk. They'll throw them in prison there. And that D.C. court system, it is, in many ways, the enforcement arm and protectorate of the swamp. So Trump wanted Ed Martin. Ed Martin's a good man. We've interviewed him here on this show before. Ed Martin wanted to drain the swamp. Tom Tillis, Republican senator, stopped it, stopped Ed Martin. So Trump came out last week, he said this.
He wasn't getting the support from people that I thought. He's done a very good job. Crime is down 25% in D.C. During his period of time. I'm very disappointed in that, but I have so many different things that I'm doing now with the trade. I'm one person. I can only I can only lift that little phone so many times in a day. But we have somebody else that will be great. I just want to say Ed is unbelievable, and hopefully we can bring him into, whether it's DOJ or whatever, in some capacity, because really outstanding. To me, it was disappointing, I'll be honest. I have to be straight. I was disappointed. A lot of people were disappointed, but that's the way it works sometimes.
Now, when Donald Trump made those comments last week, I felt then, and I do feel now, it's not that I've changed my mind, a bit of frustration with that tone, and this is what I mean by that. Donald Trump is not afraid to crucify anybody publicly if they anger him. He'll go on social media and call an actress fat and stupid. I mean, Donald Trump will blast away at anybody. Donald Trump bounced Bob Good from Congress, one of the most conservative members of Congress. Primaried him, gone. Has publicly threatened Chip Roy, Thomas Massey with primaries for opposing spending bills. Donald Trump will come after you, left, right, middle. Tom Tillis, Republican senator from North Carolina, single-handedly, pretty much, in conjunction with Democrats, but really single-handedly stopped Donald Trump's pick for U.S. Attorney of D.C. Trump gets on there and kind of I was disappointed, like my son brought home a B in math or something like that. Well, I'm disappointed. And so I was frustrated by that. But the more I listened to it a couple of times more over the weekend. You know what I heard there? Actually, I'm gonna ask the producer to play that clip again here in just 1 second when I call for it. But you know what I heard here? I heard a man that maybe in a tired moment, an honest moment, I heard a man who's exhausted trying to untie the knot.
He wasn't getting the support from people that I thought. He's done a very good job. Crime is down 25% in D.C. During his period of time. I'm very disappointed in that, but I have so many different things that I'm doing now with the trade. I'm one person. I can only lift that little phone so many times in a day. But we have somebody else that will be great. I just want to say Ed is unbelievable, and hopefully we can bring him into, whether it's DOJ or whatever, in some capacity, because really outstanding. To me, it was disappointing, I'll be honest. I have to be straight. I was disappointed. A lot of people were disappointed, but that's the way it works sometimes.
I'm only one man. I can only pick up the phone. I was just disappointed. Sounds like a guy who's exhausted. And that brings us to Congress. Here's a little fun stat came out. This GOP, remember, the GOP controls the House and the Senate. They've sent fewer bills to the White House to be signed than any Congress in 7 decades. 70 years. 70 years. It was the Korean War since we had a Congress that did this little. It's exhausting. Where's the rest of our help? But it goes to the point that I really want to make here, a point we've made many times before. We still have a lot of work to do, and we can get it done, but it's not going to be fast. It's not going to be easy. There are Democrats filling up the swamp. Remember what Chip Roy told us last week? There are Republicans protecting the swamp. So the Republicans saying they won't repeal the IRA, they're just Republicans getting fat federal checks for their district, right?
That's exactly right. And so to be clear, the CBO said that we could save about $750 billion. Right now, I'm being told that they're going to find $400 billion in savings. You know what that really means is $350 billion or a bunch of hey, I need to bring home the checks to my corn states, or let me be fair, there are Texans. Oh, we have oil and gas companies that wanted their free money too. I don't mind walking into Houston, where you are, or going out to Midland or in Austin and walking into the boardrooms and saying, guys, I am opposing the subsidies that you're taking on the back of your children and my children and our grandchildren. I have no problem telling Texans that. We should not be doing that and selling out the future of our country to walk into rooms and say, oh, we're bringing home your free subsidies. They're not free. They're killing our country.
There's a lot of people protecting the swamp. One final example of this. You saw the video last week of the Democrat members of Congress assaulting federal agents at an ICE facility, assaulting federal agents in an attempt to break out illegals who were being held inside. You saw all that. Now, that's a felony. If you walked up to a federal agent guarding an ICE facility and if you so much as laid a finger on them, you would be charged with a felony. If you shoved one, elbowed one, as Democrats did on camera, honestly, even if you didn't have a criminal record, that's probably 10 years, you're gone. You'll be saying hello to your wife and children through prison glass for 10 years. Those Democrats should all have already been arrested, charged with felonies, on the way to prison, lawyering up. Republicans in D.C., Michael McCall, this is how committed they are.
I'm just curious, should ICE be arresting or even threatening to arrest members of Congress?
I mean, that's obviously a very drastic move. I would only do that if they were complicit with a crime. I don't know all the facts behind this. If they were just visiting a detention center, I've done that many times. If they're disrupting law enforcement, that's another question. So, we can peacefully protest in this country, but you cannot be complicit with gang violence against our law enforcement. And I think perhaps that's what it comes down to. And if I could just add one last thing on the Gaza.
Well, with a stance like that, you see, we got a lot of work to do on the knot. It won't be fast. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. I love my cell phone company because my cell phone company's CEO was Mac v. SOG in Vietnam. 2 tours. You know I nerd out on the Mac v. SOG stuff. Those guys are just unbelievable. Highest casualty rate in Vietnam. And the CEO of Pure Talk walked those jungles. 2 tours. Why does Pure Talk do all the patriotic things it does? They even hire Americans. Why does Pure Talk give back to veterans when they give back? Why? Because their CEO loves the United States of America. And that's why I love Chuck. I'm so tired of giving my business. I'm tired of giving my money to companies who hate me and my values and my country. I am proud to partner with Chuck. You can keep your cell phone. You keep your cell phone number or get a new one. They have everything and you'll pay less, by the way. You'll save money. Switch. puretalk.com/JesseTV. Birthright citizenship. You are about to hear that term a lot in the coming week. And so let's just get something out of the way right off the bat. I really don't care about what anybody says about the issue. It's completely insane for a country to automatically grant citizenship because an illegal hopped the border and had a baby in the country. That is such a bonkers way to handle immigration, citizenship. It's such a degrading way to handle the citizenship of a country. Yet that has been established policy in the United States of America for a very long time. Trump is challenging it, and good for Trump. What's the Supreme Court going to do? What's the history behind all this? I don't freaking know. Let's talk to Josh. Joining me now, my buddy Josh Hammer, host of the Josh Hammer Show, and of course, authored that wonderful book, Israel and Civilization. Hey, Josh, before we get into the idiot Supreme Court, can you give us a little bit of background on this whole 14th Amendment thing?
Sure, of course. So, Jesse, I hate to disappoint you, my good friend, but just for your viewers' awareness, unfortunately, they're not really debating the 14th Amendment issue at the Supreme Court. This is basically going to be an oral argument about the scope of the so-called nationwide injunction. So I care a lot about the birthright citizenship issue, and let's go ahead and talk about it. But we're primarily dealing here with the nationwide injunction, which is a very, very, very important issue in its own right. And I think that SCOTUS is probably well primed to narrow the limits of what these rogue lower court judges can and cannot rule when it comes to the scope of the injunction. But with that, important caveat aside, let's talk about the 14th Amendment there. So the 14th Amendment begins with the citizenship clause. So the very first clause is the citizenship clause, which famously includes this qualifier. It says that all persons born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are hereby citizens of the United States. Now, the purpose of this clause is to overturn probably the single worst Supreme Court opinion in the entire history of the Supreme Court, the 1857 case called Dred Scott, which infamously held that Black people are not citizens, could never be citizens there. That was the purpose there. The key thing that is important for purposes of the substantive debate in the 14th Amendment is that qualifier subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Now, for most of the past century, call it a little over a century, close to a century and a half now at this point, actually, most people have read that jurisdiction as just being like, okay, well, if you murder someone, then you can be arrested for that crime. Therefore, you are in the jurisdiction. So by that reading of what it means to be subject to the jurisdiction, Jesse, then any alien, legal or illegal, would be subject to the jurisdiction, because if an illegal alien is here and happens to murder someone, guess what? That alien's going to be arrested there. However, I and many others have long argued that is not the proper reading of subject to the jurisdiction thereof, because the way that the framers used this phrase here, they were talking not just about territorial jurisdiction, they were talking about something that we might refer to as political jurisdiction, as owing your allegiance to a certain sovereign. In fact, if you actually go back and look at what they were trying to do, the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868 They were actually really just trying to constitutionalize the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which was passed by Congress 2 years prior. And the drafters were actually a lot clearer. They said any person born or naturalized in the United States and not subject to a foreign power is therefore a citizen of the United States there. So the better way to read this, Jesse, the best way to read the Fourth Amendment here is basically saying that you only automatically get birthright citizenship if you are not subject to a foreign power. So I would take it even further and say that a proper reading of this clause means that the only people that are constitutionally required to get birthright citizenship are people that are born here to U.S. citizens. I would argue that even the children of legal aliens, you're on a green card here, Congress can give you birthright citizenship. In fact, maybe they actually even should, but even that is actually not technically constitutionally required. But the notion that you would automatically get birthright citizenship as a children of an illegal alien is flabbergasting. That would have completely dumbfounded the very wise man who wrote this amendment in 1868.
Okay, so how did we get here then? How did we get? It's obvious to everybody. It's obvious legally. It's obvious to just common sense people. So how do we get to the place where we have millions of people hopping the border, crapping out a kid, and now the kid's a citizen? How did that happen?
Look, Jesse, I mean, first of all, it's not even a legal disaster. As you accurately point out, it's an absolute policy and moral disaster. I mean, we literally have an entire birth tourism industry here. I know that because we just had our first child last December. And when I went with my wife to the OBGYN here in South Florida, where we live, you literally see foreign people, especially here in Florida, a lot of Russian-speaking folks from Eastern Europe that are literally just here for purposes of getting a visa on their 8th, 9th month of pregnancy to pop out a child. So it's completely insane. I mean, it is an absolutely insane policy, to say nothing of the way that it incentivizes the coyotes and the cartels down in northern Mexico to transport vulnerable young women in the 7th, 8th month of their pregnancy to get across the border. It's totally nuts. The basic way that we got here is that, so for the first 2.5, 3 decades after the 14th Amendment was ratified, so we're talking here of the late 19th century, the Supreme Court actually got it right. In fact, the very first time that the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment is actually explained is in an 1871 case called the Slaughterhouse Cases. And there, Justice Samuel Miller reads it in the correct way, this notion of complete jurisdiction, political allegiance, and so forth. It starts to go off the rails a little bit in an 1898 case out of San Francisco called Wong Kim Ark. So the fact pattern in Wong Kim Ark, though, Jesse, is actually very important. So in Wong Kim Ark, the fact pattern is that you have Chinese aliens here. So people who are citizens of China, they are subject to what was then the king of China, the emperor of China. But they're here legally. They're not illegal aliens. So there, the relevant legal question was, does this child get 14th Amendment birthright citizenship? And the answer should have been no, for the reasons that I just gave there, is that even a legal alien does not have complete jurisdiction, political allegiance. But even in this opinion, from Justice Horace Gray, which the liberals love to quote here, he goes over and over and over again and makes a repeated point of emphasizing that the Chinese alien here was actually a domicile, had a legal permanent residence in San Francisco. Put another way, even the case that the liberals love to cite on this point, Wong Kim Ark, only stands for the proposition that the children of legal aliens have birthright citizenship. It says nothing about the children of illegal aliens. Where it goes off the rails even further is 84 years after that, in a case out of your state of Texas called Plyler versus Doe in 1982, you had one of the most liberal justices of the entire 20th century, Justice William Brennan, who literally drops in a footnote. And anyone who reads cases knows that footnotes are not legally binding. This is what lawyers call dicta. He literally drops in a footnote, it's very liberal justice, and says, oh, by the way, Wong Kim Ark established that everyone gets birthright citizenship. Well, no, you freaking moron. It didn't establish that, because they said time and time again, it has to do with those who are domiciled here, legal aliens, not illegal aliens. But for whatever reason, Jesse, ever since Wong Kim Ark, especially ever since Plyler versus Doe, people just automatically assume that the birthright citizenship clause guarantees that anyone born here gets citizenship. It is a misreading. It is historically illiterate. It's legally illiterate, and it's had absolutely disastrous policy ramifications as well.
All right, Josh, so you mentioned they are dealing with the nationwide injunctions, and dare I say you sounded a little bit hopeful? What's going to happen?
Yeah, so I'm actually much more hopeful on the injunction piece of the puzzle than the birthright citizenship. So, as convinced as I am that what I'm arguing is correct on the birthright citizenship point, Jesse, I don't think, unfortunately, that there are 5 votes for that proposition. I genuinely don't. I think you're looking at literally probably 2, Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito at the most. It actually wouldn't shock me if even one of them disagreed there, because this is one of those things that's just become so well ingrained that even very, very smart, very conservative, very originalist justices have become convinced that this is actually a very close call. So I'm actually, unfortunately, not optimistic on the actual substantive 14th Amendment question, but I am optimistic on the nationwide injunction issue, because there you're being asked to basically define what is and what is not the judicial power in which Article 3 of the Constitution speaks. And here, Jesse, there's only a very, very recent history of these so-called nationwide injunctions. The very first so-called nationwide injunction literally didn't happen until the late 1960s. It was like the Lyndon Johnson or the Richard Nixon presidency, and they didn't proliferate until the first Trump presidency. Donald Trump, when he was president the first time, from 2017 to 2021, faced more nationwide injunctions than the first 44 presidents combined. So this is a much more recent phenomenon. It is risibly unconstitutional. The judicial power of the United States clearly only only comprises the ability to issue a judgment, a ruling that binds the named parties to a lawsuit. And more generally speaking, when it comes to these very structural constitutional questions, Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, separation of powers, checks and balances, these are typically the kind of questions, Jesse, where I actually have faith in even the more, well, I have some faith, let's say, and even the more moderate justices here, Kavanaugh, Barrett, John Roberts there. All else considered, they're better on these questions than on these kind of, let's say kind of race adjacent questions such as birthright citizenship.
Ugh. Okay, well, that's something, I guess. Josh, as always, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Put your money where your morals are. How many times have we had that discussion? Many, many, many times. And there's some ways we can do this that's obvious. Some ways it's impossible, but I bet you never thought your next watch, your next gift, I bet you never thought about that, did you? Wasson Watch is this incredible company. United States Marine runs it, of course, veteran. And they believe in what you believe. They believe in America. And they don't believe it silently. That's probably what I love the most. Loudly. Wasson Watch not only makes these incredible Swiss watches that look sharp, Wasson Watch will loudly proclaim America, guns, God, the life of the unborn, without apology, without hesitation, and that's why I wear a Wasson watch. It's not just the quality of the watch. Honestly, the watch could be garbage. I would still support them, but the watch is amazing. That's your next watch. That's your next gift. WassonWatch.com, promo code Jesse. I want to remind you that what the American media did with Joe Biden was evil. It was evil. It wasn't a mistake. They weren't duped. They covered for the fact that the United States of America did not have a functional president for 4 years, and that is a fact that we are still paying for to this day. There is a chance Joe Biden's disastrous presidency landed a mortal wound on this country, and the American media should have stopped it before it happened, should have exposed it while it was happening, but instead they chose to cover it up. And now, look, the word chutzpah is a wonderful word. Now they're out there wanting you to buy books about it and claiming that they were simply lied to.
The bottom line is the White House was lying, not only to the press, not only to the public, but they were lying to members of their own cabinet. They were lying to White House staffers. They were lying to Democratic members of Congress, to donors about how bad things had gotten.
The real culprits are the people who are supposed to be our sources on all these things, who were constantly reassuring us behind the scenes. No, it's better than you think.
But I
remember Jeffrey Katzenberg just, oh no, he's going to be great at the debates. He's already debated this guy a couple of times. He knows what he's doing. He's out there telling, and this is in off the record settings. And you're like, really? Okay. I mean, so to me, the cover up is the people closest to him in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, they covered it up. The dumbest, most uninformed people I know knew Joe Biden had dementia a long time ago. The American media covered it up. Don't let them get away with this. Joining me now, John Phillips, host of the wonderful John Phillips Show. Hey, John, they were just duped. These Washington, D.C. insiders, they had no idea at all. Man, I almost feel bad for them.
I love the fact that they act like this is some kind of secret when it was on television where he spoke to a dead person. We all remember that. It happened. I saw it. You saw it. They saw it. It's not like you need to sit next to him on an airplane for 10 hours to figure out that the guy has a screw loose. As soon as he had a full-on conversation with a dead person in public, the cat was out of the bag. Not to mention all the times he fell going up the stairs, fell on the stage, everything else that we saw on a daily basis. And the whole time this was going on, they'd claim, "Oh, that was a deep fake." That's what they said at the George Clooney fundraiser. That was a doctored video. That wasn't true. In private, you should see this guy. He's just putting Rubik's cubes together, doing advanced calculus. The guy will blow you away in private. In public, he's a buffoon, but in private, man, this guy gives Stephen Hawking a run for his money. And we knew they were lying. They knew they were lying. But now all of a sudden they're on TV saying, "We were tricked. We were tricked." It was the people around him in the White House that just snookered all of us. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to do CYA right now because they're taking a position that's totally indefensible, saying that that guy was all there mentally. And you know what? We don't have to punish them. They don't have to punish themselves. In part because of their really bad behavior, they lost the election because all the normal people understood the guy was demented. All the normal people understood that they lied to us, including Kamala. And I think that hurt her in the presidential election more than they're willing to admit. And now they have to sit at home and they have to watch Donald Trump on their television for 4 years. And I can't think of a better way to end that story.
It's so true. I'm pretty sure Stephen Hawking could have outrun the guy at this point in time. And it is funny. I think it's fascinating how much this is in the news. And it's not just because they're books. There are books that are being written. Democrat politicians are having to answer questions about this. Here was Chuck Schumer.
Did you really not have any idea that he was not fit to serve a second term?
Casey, we're looking forward. We have the largest Medicaid cut in front of us. We have the whole federal
you're
government
facing all
at
of this
risk.
because you lost a presidential election. And
Look,
is that not Joe Biden's responsibility for deciding to run again?
We're looking forward.
That's it?
That's it.
We're looking forward, but they keep having to answer these questions. Why is this in the news, John? That's what I want to know. Is it because the media is trying to cover their butts? The Democrats are trying to cover their butts? Very clearly, they think this issue is still damaging to them, right?
Well, if they weren't the ones that wrote the books, there would be people who work for Joe Biden who would write tell-alls, and the story would come out that way. There's no way to put lipstick on the pig. They lied on behalf of Joe Biden. They lied on behalf of Joe Biden because they wanted him to win the election and the Republicans to lose. There's no way to make them look good. So I guess they figured, why not just go ahead and profit from it by putting our names on the tell-alls and not the Biden staffers who would end up writing these books. But what people like Chuck Schumer did in particular, and Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama and the Democratic Party apparatus was even more sinister than what you described. Because don't forget, they rigged their primary so that Joe Biden would be the nominee. They changed the calendar so that Joe Biden couldn't lose. They knocked people off ballots. They canceled the primary election in Florida. They never actually voted in the primary in Florida. They just no need to have an election here. We know it's going to be Joe Biden. So it wasn't even just that they covered up for him. They put their fingers on the scale of the process so that no one could challenge him and no one could defeat him and no one could expose him for being as out of it as he was. This is not Joe Biden screwing the Democratic Party. This was a choice that they made to stick with Joe Biden, in part because they thought Kamala was so awful and unelectable, but they all controlled him. they benefited from him being in that feeble state. And they all got what they want because this was essentially 4 years of the country being run by committee of essentially being made up of the power players within the Democratic Party.
Golly. Speaking of screwing the Democratic Party, you recently had Willie Brown on your show. What did he have to say?
He said very interesting things, including the fact that he said that in a private conversation with Kamala Harris, back when she was a U.S. Senator, and this was before Joe Biden chose her to be the vice president, when she knew she was on the list and she knew that it was a possibility that she could be tapped by Biden to be put on the ticket, he told her not to do it. He said, "You're not ready. This would not be a good move for you. You should try to become the attorney general or become a different cabinet official, stay in the United States Senate, whatever. Let the cookie bake in the oven a little bit longer." And she got really mad at him and cut him off and decided, "Who are you, Willie Brown, to tell me what to do? I'm going to accept the vice presidency," which she did. And then she ended up becoming the Democratic nominee and losing the election. And now she's damaged goods. And now Willie thinks that it's highly unlikely that she's going to be the Democratic Party nominee in 2028. And he said that had she listened to him and not taken the vice presidency, she'd be in the catbird seat right now, or as he said, still in the mix.
So who is going to be the 2028 guy? Is it Pritzker? Newsom? Is it the Rear Admiral Buttigieg? Who is it?
I'm not sure at this point because that party right now is in complete disarray. You look at their polling numbers, and I don't recall a time where the Democrats as a party have polled so poorly as they are right now. And you look at these names that you just mentioned, whether it's Gavin Newsom, okay, right now we're in shambles here in California. Go ahead, try to run on that record. Good luck. Buttigieg, who cannot get any black support at all in the Democratic primary. Kamala Harris running again. Okay, she ran once before. She lost. She was not highly regarded by Democratic Party power brokers. So why would you run that horse again? Elizabeth Warren. Okay, she's 900 years old and I don't know, maybe she'll want to spend more time with her family in the teepee. Bernie Sanders is also a dinosaur. And then you have the new crop where it's AOC, who's been traveling around the country with Bernie Sanders, and she fancies herself as a candidate for president. And Jasmine Crockett, who is their new star on social media, or Jasmine effing Crockett, I guess I should say, because every time she goes on, she sounds like a dirty club comic. I don't know if any of those people match up well with J.D. Vance, particularly if the Trump administration has a successful term. I don't see how you run one of those horses and you beat him. If things go to hell, then, any of them can win because you have two choices. But just looking at them on paper right now, I don't know. Maybe this is going to be something like 2008 or 1992, where someone who's basically unknown comes out of nowhere and wins. Maybe that's the possibility that could happen. But right now, I don't see any of their mentioned names looking particularly strong.
Well, I actually feel better. And I laughed. Thank you, John. Come back soon, brother. I love feeling good. It's kind of a dumb thing to say, though, isn't it? Everybody loves feeling good, but I feel so much better now than I used to. Why? What am I doing? Well, for 3 years, a little over 3 years, actually, I've been taking a male vitality stack from Chalk every single day. I sit down, I have my breakfast. Today was bacon and eggs. I have my breakfast, and I have my male vitality stack from Chalk. Natural herbal supplements. And the results in my life are unbelievable. My energy level, the way my mind feels. Does that make sense? My mind just feels like it works so much faster than it used to. My mood, my wife comments on how great my mood is. Change your life with natural herbal supplements from Chalk. They have stuff for women, stuff for men. Whatever you're looking for, Chalk has something for you. Go to chalk.com/JesseTV and get a subscription. All right, let's talk about something wonderful. And Donald Trump is really, really great at foreign policy. He just is. And there are reasons behind that, which we'll get into in just a moment. But let me first talk about the release of the hostage, Eden Alexander. Guy was held by Hamas long time. Trump gets him sprung. Here he was talking about it.
Eden's the only American citizen was captured and held hostage by Hamas since October 7th, 2023. And he's coming home to his parents, which is really great news. I mean, to me, it's big news. They thought he was dead. So that's that.
All right. I love this about Donald Trump, and it actually makes me angry at other American presidents like Joe Biden and Obama, but I love that Donald Trump brings Americans home. If you are an American citizen and you are held abroad by an evil foreign government, an evil terrorist organization, you have every right to expect your president, Democrat or Republican, whoever it is, to get you home. That's the deal. That's the reason, that's part of the reason we elect these people to serve this country, protect this country. An American president should see it as one of his highest duties to find American citizens wherever they may be around the globe and get them home. And Democrats just don't do this anymore. And this really comes down to how you see yourself and how you see America. It's part of the reason Trump is so very good at it. Donald Trump loves this country. I really don't think that's deniable. It's obvious. He's been talking lovingly about America since, years before he ever got into politics. He loves the country. And more importantly, or probably as important, Donald Trump sees himself. He sees himself as a protector of us, as the American people. And that's how I want the American president to see himself. He sees himself as someone who should look out for you. No matter who you are, no matter where you're held, if you're held somewhere else, he will make it a priority to bring you home, and he does. And I just love that so much. And I love the fact that Donald Trump doesn't want war. A lot of political leaders today and always have loved war. War can be profitable. It can be good for your popularity, but it really takes somebody to command the most powerful army on the planet and always push for peace, which Trump does. Remember his inaugural address when he talked about it?
My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier.
Well, he didn't just say that. India and Pakistan, you remember all that dust up last week. Maybe you at least saw some headlines about it. Well, these countries historically despise each other. There's all kinds of history there, which I won't go into here, but it's all ugly. It's really, really bad. They hate each other. They're right next to each other, and they're always fighting. They just hate each other. And something breaks out, and it's getting bad, and people are dying, and people are looking, and they're saying, my goodness, these are both nuclear powers. Two nuclear powers who hate each other are starting to kill each other. This could get way out of control badly. Well, the American president didn't have to, stepped in.
On Saturday, my administration helped broker a full and immediate ceasefire, I think a permanent one, between India and Pakistan, ending a dangerous conflict of two nations with lots of nuclear weapons. And they were going at it hot and heavy, and it was seemingly not going to stop. We helped a lot. And we helped also with trade. I said, come on, we're going to do a lot of trade with you guys. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. If you stop it, we're doing trade. If you don't stop it, we're not going to do any trade. People have never really used trade the way I used it. That I can tell you. And all of a sudden they said, I think we're going to stop. And they have. And we stopped the nuclear conflict. I think it could have been a bad nuclear war.
And that is a big part of why he's very good at foreign policy as well. Donald Trump has made deals his whole life. You know the book he wrote, Art of the Deal and whatnot, but both foreign and domestic, Donald Trump has dealt with powerful men across the planet always trying to make a deal. Hey, why are we fighting? There's no need to fight. Let's make a deal. I'll get a little bit and you get a little bit. Let's make a deal. He approaches the American presidency the exact same way. You just heard it right there. He sits down, India, Pakistan. Hey, come on, let's do a deal. Hey, we'll make it work for you. We'll make it work for you. You can have some extra curry. We'll throw a little bit of this, a little of that in. It'll work out for everybody. Makes deals with people. And it works. And now people aren't dying. It matters. And it's a far, far departure from what we get every daggone time there's a Democrat president.
We immediately rejoined the Paris Agreement. We convened major climate summits and reestablished. I apologize we ever pulled out of the agreement.
3 years. I'm sorry. We kind of suck. I'm sorry. It's freaking awful. Glad we're done with that.
Mr. President, since you left office, there have been a number of books that have come out, deeply sourced from Democratic sources, that claim in your final year there was a dramatic decline in your cognitive abilities. In the final year of your presidency, what is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that. We found ourselves unable to deal with a lot of just basic issues, and which I won't go into in the interest of time. And so we went to work, and we got it done. And one of the things that well, and
Alyssa, one of the things I think is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day.
The projects, the benefits. How do you lead the world without having the best infrastructure in the world? How do you lead the world without having the best health care in the world? How do you lead the world without having the best education system in the world? How do you lead the world when you don't have that done?
Four years. That man pretended to be our president for 4 years. I'll see you tomorrow.